Former President Jacob Zuma wants the court's decision to send him back to jail reversed. The High Court in Pretoria are going to hear that appeal today. A reminder of what happened a week ago. It did rule that the former president's medical parole was unlawful, ordering him to return to prison to complete his 15-month contempt of court sentence. Masego Rahlaga on one of the biggest stories of the day for us. Hello to you, Masego. So what can we expect from today? I imagine appeal after appeal after appeal.
Well, good morning, Gareth. I think none of the South Africans are surprised that we find ourselves here today in terms of this appeal that is going to be applied for by the former president and his lawyers today. So what we're expecting is for themselves, and as you know, Correctional Services, that department as well, said that they would also oppose that decision and that they would also apply for leave to appeal the decision by the High Court in Pretoria. So basically what we're expecting today is that the lawyers representing those who are applying for this appeal, for instance, your former President Jacob Zuma, as well as the Department of Correctional Services, to put to the judge, the same judge, Gareth. Remember, once a judgment has been made against you, for you to actually get yourself into the Supreme Court of Appeals, you have to apply to that same judge that made the judgment against you before, to ask them to please allow you to go to the SCA because you feel that there are prospects of another judge finding a different conclusion. So that judge today will be hearing those arguments from the former president as well as the Department of Correctional Services. But what we found out just a few hours ago, in fact yesterday, is that AfriForum will also be going there to oppose the former president's application for leave to appeal. They say that the judge did not err in his decision, that the former president's parole was unlawful and that he set it aside. So that's what we're expecting to hear today. Whether the judge will give them or will grant them that leave to appeal so that they can make their way to the Supreme Court of Appeal is all dependent on what they tell him he erred on today.
Oh, that's what we're going to find out a little bit later as well. You can expect live coverage of this. All going to be done virtually as well, Masego, of course, this court case, this appeal. But some of the reasons that the court were given to set aside Arthur Fraser's decision to grant parole, perhaps just remind us all what some of those were.
So remember when the former commissioner, the former National Commissioner of Correctional Services, Arthur Fraser, made that decision to let the former president go home, two of the main reasons that he made, that he said, was that the former president is ill, that whatever is wrong with him is irreversible, that he is old and frail, and this poses a threat on his life. But the other decision that prompted, the other aspect that prompted his decision, according to himself, was that there would be unrest in South Africa, there would be violence in South Africa if the former president is kept in jail. But of course, the judge last week saying, those are not grounds to let somebody go home just because you feel that their imprisonment or incarceration will result in the country going into violent disarray. That is not ground enough to make the decision that they should go home. But also the judge saying that none of the doctors that were looking after the former president while he was in correctional services corroborated that notion or that conclusion that whatever is wrong with him, whatever illness he's got, is irreversible, and that it's going to cause more harm on his life if he's kept in prison. But, in terms of those decisions or those reasonings by the judge last week in the North Gauteng High Court, Gareth, I know that this morning you spoke to a legal expert who agrees with the judge, particularly when it comes to, the notion that there'd be violence in South Africa and that South Africa would be lawless if the former president goes back to jail again. And what we know also, Gareth, what happened the last time is that the judge said whatever time the former president spent out of jail during the time, between the time that he was released on medical parole and the time that he's expected to head back to jail, will not count, or will not contribute to the time that he is supposed to spend in jail. You remember that was 15 months. But here's the legal expert agreeing with the judge on the notion that there'd be violence if the former president is sent back to jail.
the judge might be alive to what's happening in the country, but from a legal perspective, it's irrelevant to the consideration of the matter. You would recall when the Constitutional Court dealt with the death penalty, that some kind of public tone or what was actually happening in the country did sort of form part of what, they considered eventually. But in this particular instance, that's actually irrelevant for the judge and what he has to decide, this threat of public violence.